Okay, new patch is out, and I think there are three things that are interesting in this patch for me. Now, the first thing is a old friend from Arma 3. So you may know that in this game you can rest your gun like that. That has been in the game for a few months. Well, what happens when you hold left control and use mouse wheel? They added back the stance adjustment that Arma 3 had. You can also do that with leaning, by holding left control and tapping the lean key. And you can combine it, the leaning with, the stance adjustment. Now, what I would really like to see is some type of. First off, they should add the over-the-shoulder stance adjustment that Arma 3 had. Because in Arma 3, you could go at least one step above your normal shooting position, then the gun would be almost on top of your shoulder. And they could even expand it into some type of blind fire. So you could, let's imagine you're behind this car, and you could just lift your arms and lift the gun so you could shoot over the car, and the rotation point of your gun would be above your head. Because in this game, blind fire would be pretty useful because of the high damage per bullet. In other games, blind fire is not as useful because it takes too many bullets to take out a player. Now, the second thing they fixed is, or almost fixed completely, is the recoil on machine guns on cars. I'm going to take a PKM for demonstration. Okay, so this is how shooting with the PKM is when you're standing. This is crouching. This is resting without a bipod. This is resting it with a bipod. Okay, now this is how it feels when you're shooting at. Actually, I'll start with a 50 caliber. See, it rattles still a bit, but a bit too much, I think. But you still have a sort of a side picture. In the previous game versions, the recoil would be offset to the left or right, I think, and it would really distort the side picture to the point where you couldn't see what you're shooting at. Now it's a bit more useful. But I still think it rattles too much. Now, as for the 50 caliber, I've heard from people that when you shoot it, you probably wouldn't look for side picture, you'd probably look slightly above the sights, and then walk your tracers into what you're shooting at. And it would be cool if the game would add some type of intermediate, slightly above the sight view for machine guns, so you could walk your shots into the target. Because with this fully leaned out view, you waste a lot of ammo trying to walk your shots into the target. And what they also should add for machine guns is the ability to use binoculars. Because in real life, you could probably just take the left hand off the gun, put the binocular on the car, on the roof, and just use it like that. And I think they should add it, because using machine guns without scopes, if you use a PKM machine gun on the ground, you constantly use your binocular to check for targets or to check what you're hitting. And you can't do that right now with that gun. Let's go back to the PKM. Okay, now see here. It's more useful than it was before, but it still rattles too much compared to the PKM fired by a shooter on the ground. And I had this discussion on the Discord for Reforger. The gun is mounted onto the vehicle like that. And that will absorb almost all the recoil coming from the gun, because the car weighs a ton. The vehicle won't go anywhere when the gun is shooting. And the shooter could probably just hold the gun with his hand on the pistol grip without even touching the shoulders, and it wouldn't recoil on him. And the game should recognize that, because currently it's more accurate to shoot it like that than on the machine gun Jeep like that. So if it was like that in real life, nobody would use a machine gun on a car. They would just dismount it and walk around with it. And now comes the big thing for this patch, is the new SVD ammo. Okay, so let's see what they have. Okay, let's take an SVD. We got 4 different ammo types now. You got 7N1, that's the standard ammo that the game had before. Then you got the 57N323S, and it says FMJ, so it's probably some lower grade steel core with jacketed metal around it. Then you got trace ammo 73. And 7BZ3. That's armor piercing and incendiary. So I tested all of those. I'm going to show the data now. No, first before I show the data, I'll just going to fire a shot with a tracer. Empty the chamber. The cool thing with tracers here, I can see what you're hitting, the trajectory, you can see if it penetrates something. This is about 300 meters away. Okay, now I'm going to show the data on the different ammo types. Okay, now let's look at different ammo types here. So I tested them from 100 meters to 600 meters on an American standard rifleman target, which has the PASGT West. And those are 4 different curves. And the numbers are health points left after impact, not damage done. So 22 means in this case, it took out 78 hit points. And if the hit point damage is, if the hit points left is less than 25, then your character goes unconscious from the injury. So as you can see here, that most ammo types at below 100 meters will instantly drop a player if you hit him center mass. And some of the ammo types will even do it at up to 300 meters. What I also observed when testing the ammo is that there was a lot of variation in the impact. So it wasn't like in the previous week's patch where it was almost completely linear and you could only see some, what I suspect is tumbling after 400 meters on the 5.56 and 5.05. What I notice here on the lighter, that's supposedly the cheapest ammo, the FMJ I think, because I don't know how expensive it is. That ammo apparently, my guess it starts to tumble in targets much sooner than the other ammo types. Because that would explain the extreme damage output, because you got 84 damage, which means the target is almost dead from one hit. And it would consistently drop a target at 300 meters center mass hit. Because those are averages for most of my tests. And let's look at the graph here. You can see here the 7 and 1. But the graph, you can read it like that. This is the hit points left, and that's the distance. So the higher the curve rises, the less effective the bullet becomes over distance, or the better the armor protects from it. You can see here the 7 and 1 is pretty linear. And then at 500 meters, the damage would drop off at 600 meters. My guess is that's when it starts to tumble. It loses enough speed, then it impacts 600 meters, and it probably tumbles, which means it falls over itself and makes a larger impact hole. And what's interesting here is the red one, that's the FMJ round. It would consistently deliver almost killing damage, then at 300 meters less, then it would lose damage power at higher distances. Which means it's not really good at far distance penetration, however it appears to tumble really hard in targets at close ranges. Then the 73 is, let's see, the symbol. This one loses power almost consistently. It's almost linear at this weapon like that. And then we got 7BC3, that's the armor piercing one. Now this is the most interesting one because you can see here, it's the triangular one. It goes up like that. And basically it loses power linearly, and then after 300 meters, it doesn't lose any power. It just does sometimes even more damage. And that was consistently over many tests, which means I think that ammo is designed to tumble on impacts. And I think the tumbling is prevented because it has still too much velocity at below 300 meters, and then when it impacts, it starts tumbling, doing all of the extra damage here. And at first I thought from last week's test, because it felt really watered down and casual because the assault rifle ammo, like the 5.56, and it would only do like Counter-Strike levels of damage at 300 meters. So it would take you 4 or 5 hits to kill a player with it on center mass. However, then I tested just for fun. I used PKM at 25 meters on the target. That's the big machine gun, 30 caliber like size. And that would instantly drop the character, like not even wounded, like completely dead from one center mass shot. Then I tested the AK-74 again at 25 meters. And then something interesting happened here. That's 7.6N1, that's 5.45. That's Dragunov SVD. At below 25 meters, I think all weapons in the game have an extremely huge damage output. And I think it's one of the effects the developers described. They have 3 effects described in the ballistics. One is tumbling, mushrooming, and the third one was if something impacts at extremely high velocities. I'm not sure what the name for that was. And I think that's what happens with all the ammo in the game. Because I noticed that at the beginning in the first patch last week, notice here that the damage output wouldn't get reduced almost for both M855 and 7 and 6 last week. Only the 100 meters they would lose that. So I think that's when the bullet is still accelerating after coming out of the barrel. Then it starts losing speed, and then it starts losing the power. Because if I'm thinking about this correctly, a bullet coming out of a barrel, it doesn't immediately lose velocity, it just loses acceleration. So it's still accelerating after coming out of a barrel. I think the game simulates it to great detail because you have this huge damage output up to 25 meters, and then it sharply drops off. You see at 26, then suddenly 65 health points left. What that means in the game is, I think, that the game wouldn't be as casual as expected. Because now if you use any type of 308 type weapon, PKM, M60, or any of the sniper rifles, at 25 meters up to 50 meters, you're almost guaranteed to kill or instantly drop a player. So it's going to be pretty intense to play close combat.